Kathleen, walk us through the inflation numbers and what that means for the Fed.
Well, and this was kind of an unusual day for inflation gauges, Sherry, because we always pay attention. We have the CPI, for example, consumer prices for the month of July, coming in a bit lower than expected. Yippee, everybody started saying maybe the Fed could pause in September. They hiked rates in July. Then on Friday, producer prices, they're kind of they're an important number with all the focus on inflation, but they're wholesale prices, so they're not quite the same picture. They're one step below retail prices, which is the broader view of inflation in the economy. And what we see there is producer prices, number one, actually came in up more than expected, 0.8% year over year. They were up just 0.2% in June. And in fact, some of the key numbers in the PPI, Producer Price Index, carry over to the PCE deflator, the Fed's main gauge, which will be out later in the month. This has to do with services prices. It has to do with some more technical factors that have to do with health insurance costs. So those kind of tell you, ooh, things are hotter than you expect. But then something that is always important is the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, which includes a closely watched measure of inflation expectations. They suddenly weakened. Hey, gasoline prices were going up last month. How did you get more a little less worried about inflation? But in fact, the year ahead number went down to 3.3% year over year from 3.4. You could say that's all rounding error. Nevertheless, it's a little bit weaker there, isn't it? And the 5 to 10 year outlook went down to 2.9 from 3.1. So there's just been a little bit of a move that way, but it was enough to make investors say, uh-oh, CPI looked weaker, but now producer prices are telling us one thing. And at the same time, expectations, what's an investor to do? That's why the day was so interesting, but it certainly sets us up for a lot more focus on the Fed FOMC minutes this week to just show us how divided, how many people wanted to pause again, how many people were all ready to hike, and furthermore, the Jackson Hole Symposium, Kansas City Fed. That's a week from this Friday, and that's where Jay Powell will give a big speech, which everyone's waiting to see what kind of direction he gives on all these issues.